Thank you everyone for joining today. My name is Matt Lara. I'm with the City of Austin's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Management, and I'll be moderating today's press conference. Today I'm joined by Travis County Judge Andy Brown, City of Austin Mayor Steve Adler, City of Austin City Manager Spencer Cronk, Austin Energy General Manager Jacqueline Sargent, and Austin Water Director Greg Mazzaros. We'll begin with some brief comments followed by updates from Austin Energy and Austin Water. With that, I'll hand it off to Judge Brown.
Thank you so much. Just want to let everyone know that obviously this weather emergency is not over yet. And like so many of you, my situation hasn't changed, although I did just get a report that power may have come back on at my house, in my parents' house, where it's been off since 2 a.m. on Monday. So there could be some good news there. In order for us all to get through this safely, though, I want to ask everybody, unless you have an emergency, please stay at home. The roads are still extremely dicey, very dangerous. As the day goes on, they will get more and more icy and dangerous, so please avoid travel if you can. I also want to take a second to thank all the volunteers who have been helping out in a big way across our community. We've seen people with, four-wheel drive vehicles who have been stepping up to help their fellow neighbors and their community. I know of one person who helped actually pick up a family of 2 little kids and 2 adults from their apartment where a water leak had sprung in the apartment above them and their floor was wet. They were able to get them safely to a home of a relative in Hutto. So the stepping up of volunteers has just been amazing, we're depending on volunteers for a lot of this. The sense of community between the county and the city and all the people in it and the volunteers in it to get through this together have also been amazing. Spanish as well. Quiero que todos sepan que esta emergencia no se ha terminado. Como muchos de ustedes, mi situación tampoco ha cambiado. Para que podamos superar esta situación en una manera segura, tenemos que seguir haciendo lo que hemos estado haciendo. Quédense en casa cuando pueden y eviten viajar. Si viajan, tengan cuidado y hagan un plan. También quiero agradecer a los voluntarios que se han esforzado para ayudar a sus vecinos y a la comunidad. Hemos visto personas con vehículos que son 4x4 ofreciendo sus servicios para transportar personas y entregar provisiones críticas para quienes los necesitan. Este sentido de comunidad da
I think we had some technical difficulties at the end there, but Mayor Adler.
I don't think that I'm next. I think that the next speaker was going to be either Jackie or Greg.
My apologies.
No problem.
Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Sargent. I'm the General Manager for Austin Energy. For so many of our customers here at home and across the state, they've been personally dealing with this absolutely devastating situation. For some people, I know it's been longer than others, considering the storm-related outages we experienced last week. I am so sorry that our customers are experiencing these horrible conditions, and I want you to know that Austin Energy is doing everything that we can to restore power. We continue to operate under ERCOT directives to help ensure that a collapse of the statewide electric system does not occur. The measures being taken are doing just that. We are holding it together, and we are meeting the customer needs the best that we can at this time. Currently, we are actually now dealing with 2 critical situations. We're continuing to respond to the ERCOT needs for the electric grid, and ERCOT is operating at extremely low reserve margins. So if you do have power on, please continue to use as little as possible because every little bit helps. We are also being affected by additional severe impacts from ice storm events. The ice storm is causing tree limbs to fall and damage equipment and contact power lines. It's also impeding our operations of some of our equipment. These impacts are affecting customers, including some who had been restored overnight and some who had not been previously without power. As ERCOT reserves improve, even though they do remain low, we are able to restore some customers. We have restored as many circuits as we can at this time across our service territory, and we are prioritizing those customers who have been without power the longest. However, this power may not be able to stay on indefinitely. If ERCOT resources remain available as they're looking, once those circuits stabilize that we've been able to bring on, chances of system overloads will decrease, and we hope to begin rotating outages. We have not been able to initiate rotating outages because the ERCOT requirements have been so large that our available circuits have been maxed out. There just wasn't enough headroom to allow us to rotate those circuits, and we are working to get to that point. We're hearing some concerns and some speculation that's out there about hospitals. All hospitals and other Tier 1 critical loads are currently energized, and we have no plans to add them to any rotating outages. However, even our critical facilities are vulnerable to ice storms and weather events. We encourage these facilities to make sure that they're prepared with their backup generation in case of such an emergency. One last note. Austin Energy line workers, our crews, are located across this community right now. They are working to restore power for customers. They have been working 24/7 around the clock, out in the elements, and in dangerous conditions. Some of our crews are reporting incidents ranging from people threatening them, harassing them, distracting them, and even throwing things at them. I know that people want to know when their power will be restored. I know that they are extremely frustrated. I know that these are untenable circumstances. But please, I beg of you, do not approach Austin Energy crews if you see them out working. These are essential workers risking their lives to respond to an emergency, and they are there to help you. Thank you.
And now Austin Water Director Greg Masaros.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Mazaris. I'm Director of Austin Water, and I want to provide an update on impacts to our drinking water system. Over the last roughly 36 hours, we've seen significant changes in demand on our water system. It's the cumulative effects of thousands of private plumbing burst pipes, public main breaks, and customers practicing freeze protection through dripping faucets. All of that's combined to significantly increase demand above our ability to produce water. For example, in the last roughly 24 hours, we've seen peak pumping and demand be 2.5 times greater than our ability to produce water. And that's rapidly been draining down our system and our reservoirs. Customers are experiencing significant low pressure or outright water outages as our system is draining down and we're unable to meet demand. This has been most severe in our southwest area, and we've issued a boil water notice for the southwest area, given the low water pressure, to be protective of public health. Whenever pressure drops below minimums, we issue a boil water notice to make sure that customers that are consuming water stay safe. We have all available resources trying to increase water output and repair water mains and work with the community to refill our reservoirs. We're going to need a lot of community help here. We are requesting that customers no longer drip faucets to do freeze protection. We're really in a decision-making mode of trying to restore water to hospitals and fire protection and other essential services, and really need customers to cut back on things like dripping faucets, managing appliance use like dishwashers and washers if at all possible, managing burst pipes if they have a burst pipe or see a burst pipe, if you can isolate that on your property or call it in. I know we have very long wait lines with people calling in, but stay with it. Also, if you see a main break with all the snow on the ground and the slush, it's difficult for our crews that normally get around and can see water main breaks to see them, to respond to them. If you see a main break in a street, please call that in, email 311, whatever it takes, and we'll get out there and repair this. It's going to take just that kind of level of effort. I want to put the drip in a perspective here. It may not seem like much water if you drip a few faucets, but even dripping a small amount of water out of 3 or 4 faucets can easily be a gallon a minute. And over the course of 24 hours, that's for one home, that's over 1,400 gallons. And we have hundreds of thousands of homes doing that. That's 140 million gallons of water a day through just faucet dripping. And that's well more than double than the kind of water we would use on a normal winter day. So again, it's all of these things adding up that is draining our system down, and we're just going to need everyone to pull together and help us manage demand and refill our system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now I'll pass it off to City Manager Cronk and Mayor Adler for some brief comments. City Manager Cronk.
Thank you. As you know, we're in the middle of a historic storm that is crippling our state, and it's impacting each of us in different ways, and the individuals that are the most vulnerable need to be protected. I have been inspired because I've seen neighbors helping neighbors, people really reaching out to say what we can do together to make sure we're keeping each other safe. We as a city are putting everything we have at this issue. We have city employees across all departments that have been working around the clock to make sure that we can address the situation as quickly as possible. So thank you for your patience, but we know this is frustrating, and I'm sorry that this is happening. As a city, we continue to provide essential resources, and we put up shelters, and I'll just remind everyone where those are. They're at the Palmer Events Center and Del Valley High School. We've been really appreciative of the partnership in our Austin Independent School District, who has opened additional warming centers that will provide individuals a place to warm up and charge their essential medical devices. And if you are unable to shelter in place and must travel to one of the shelters listed, you need to contact 311 to arrange transportation. And I know that transportation resources are extremely limited, and the public is asked to reserve this resource for our most vulnerable populations, especially those who require power for their medical devices. That's why we're thankful for any volunteers who can offer assistance through ADRN. That phone number is 512-808-0800. But please do your best to stay at home as much as possible during the severe weather to keep the roadways clear and safe for the first responders and those seeking shelter. We need to save water, as Director Mazzaro says. We need to save energy, as General Manager Sargent says. We have to save gas. We have to help each other. That's what's going to get us through this, is by helping each other and doing our part. Thank you. We appreciate, and we will get through this. Mayor?
Manager, thank you. Judge, it is good to work with you. I appreciate your leadership and the ability for the city and the county to work together the way they are, and to Jackie and Greg leading Austin Energy and Austin Water. Incredibly trying times. Please thank your staffs for what I know is 24/7 work going on right now. To the community, I would say that I see and understand how many people are scared and frustrated and confused and angry, and I am too. To be in a situation right now where we had 5 million people in the state without power, and I understand still about 3 million without power in the state of Texas, is a huge failure of the grid and the management of power. in the state. We weren't ready for a sustained 18 below condition, but we need to be. We need to get better answers from ERCOT, the State Electric Reliability Commission, both as to how we got here and how we make sure we're never here again. There are going to be a lot of conversations about that. But what we need to do as a community right now is focus on the immediate challenge. We have several days here that are going to be tough. And from all indications, it could be that they're going to get tougher than where they are right now. At a high level, it may be that we don't get power generation back in the state sufficient for us to be able to return until things can thaw. And it looks like that might not happen until Friday or Saturday, which means that we're in this for a while. It would be one thing if we were still just dealing with COVID. But on top of that, to be dealing with the power situation. On top of that, to be dealing with the ice and the snow. And now to be dealing with the water situation as well. Of all of those issues, the one that is most within our control right now is water. And I want to just repeat and emphasize some of the things that Greg said. We're approaching right now a usage of water that's about 300 million gallons a day. That's by far more than anything that we have ever seen before. 2-3 times larger than what we've ever seen before. That could be resulting from a lot of things. It could be that people we have water leaks. We have people that are running water lines. It could be that people are filling their bathtubs in order to be able to hold on to the water. But what we do know is that we can't be doing any of those things. We need to conserve water. And we need to do that as a community, which means for the next couple of days, don't run your dishwasher, don't run your washing machine, if you're fortunate enough to have the power where you were able to do that. We need to conserve water, and that right now is the most immediate priority. We've been telling people for several days now to run water in your lines so they don't freeze. There's good reason for that. But the risk to the water is great enough, the water supply. The risk is great enough that we're telling people don't do that now. So we would appreciate it if people didn't do that. As we deal with the immediacy of the issues that we have in front of us, we really do need to pull together as a community. So this is also a call for volunteers. There is a website with the Austin Disaster Relief Network, ADRN, and we would appreciate people going online. What we're looking for here are people that have maybe four-wheel drive cars that can take people out on our streets from a place to a safer place. That can help people get home from hospitals when they're ready to be discharged. If you could go to that website and fill out that form, that would be helpful. We also are opening up greater facilities, warming stations and shelters, and we need volunteers to help with those as well. I know we have big issues that we're going to have to deal with. I know the anger and the frustration, but we really do need to focus right now on getting through the next several days. When I hear that our electric crews going outside now to work to restore lines are going into some areas and being harassed, having things thrown at them like snowballs or rocks, people cussing at them. That's not who we are. That's not who we are as a city. And that's the kind of behavior that just cannot happen here. These workers, the workers in water department and operations, the workers in energy and operations are working 24/7 to try to take this calamity, a lot of it natural, and make sure that we can keep our community safe. If you have power, act like you don't to the best degree you can to conserve. If you haven't had power and the power went on, that's great, but don't necessarily believe it's going to be able to sustain that way. So if you're in a safer place, I don't know that you leave that to go home at this point when your power comes on, if you can stay where you are for the next couple of days. We are in a state of flux and some measure of uncertainty. And I know people want certain answers. We don't have a lot of real certain answers, other than we are all in this together. The people that are working on it are professionals in their fields and are doing the absolute best to protect and keep everybody safe. We're going to get through this. It's just the next few days. It's going to seem like a long time, but that's what we need to do.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. At this time, I'm going to hand it off to our poll reporter, Austin Sanders from Austin Chronicle, to ask some questions. I am going to have him prioritize the Austin Energy questions first because I believe that Jackie has to jump off at 2. And then we will also be asking the other questions in there as well beyond 2 o'clock. So please bear with us for that. Austin?
Hey, thanks. Austin Sanders with the Chronicle here. Fox 7 asks, someone we spoke to in Austin Colony says her power is back on, but some others she knows were knocked off. Are rotating outages happening around the city?
Thank you for that question. So currently we are not at the point where we have the stability of our system to be able to initiate and enact those rotating outages. What we have seen is storm damage from the ice storm that we experienced overnight, causing tree limbs to come in contact with power lines or actually damage power infrastructure, or having ice on some of our infrastructure causing it or impeding its ability to operate. So we are working on all of that at this time.
Okay, thank you. And Sun Radio asks, why is it that PEC and other electric co-ops that are part of ERCOT were able to reduce their outage greatly, but Austin was stuck? How are the City of Austin connections any different?
As you look at the loads that are served by Austin Energy across the community, we have a large amount of medical facilities. We have government facilities that have vital communications infrastructure that are needed to be able to communicate statewide. We have other loads that are critical in nature just due to being the capital of Texas. So when you look at the number of circuits that we have available, and I'm just going to make up a number because it's easier just to try to keep the math simple. So assume that we have 200 circuits available that serve our customers, and a circuit could have anywhere from 1,000 to 2,500 customers on it. If half of those or 100 are designated as critical, having critical loads on them, they're not available for us to shed to respond to an ERCOT directive. So we only have the other 100 left. So because of the amount of critical load on our system, different from other situations, other utilities, and the extreme event that had ERCOT give the directive to reduce all the circuits that we had available, that's why we maxed out. So we got to that point, and there was nobody else that we could cut to implement and turn on those other circuits. Then we had other things that came into account. We had this weather event. It froze up equipment that normally would have cycled in 10 or 40-minute rotations. Now it's been out for days. So it doesn't operate the way it's supposed to without manual intervention. So until we can get all of those circuits balanced with load on them, stable, and have enough headroom to be able to have a sufficient capacity to allow for that rotation, we won't be able to enact that. We are doing everything that we can. We have worked with large customers to reduce their load. we thank them for their participation and support of this community at this time when the community needs it most. That's why we've been able to energize some folks that have been out for a long time. We'll continue to work through this. Our goal is to get to that point where we can continue to cycle through the outages.
Got it. Thank you. Austonia asks, the Public Utility Commission officials said Monday that energy prices would be adjusted in light of demand. What can Austin Energy customers expect from their upcoming bill?
Well, we're looking at that, and as we, purchase all of our energy from the ERCOT wholesale market to serve our customers, those prices have gone up in response to this demand, increased demand. So we're going to be watching that. I can't give you what that impact is going to be at this time, but we do realize that there are going to be impacts, and we're going to be mindful of that as we work through making sure that we maintain that very important balance of affordability, reliability that we can do, along with ensuring that we're managing the financial health of the utility so that we can continue to operate.
Okay, and KUT asks, why can't the outages be more granular? For example, shutting off power to certain blocks. Austin Energy can shut off your power if you don't pay your bill, so why not something similar in this case?
The way the system was set up was to cycle through circuits and looking at amounts of load instead of individual consumer load at the meter. So we do have remote disconnect meters that we can do, but they're not part of this system or this application because we need to do it in blocks of power, and to go through and individually, disconnect meters one by one would be really overwhelming, and we don't have the systems in place, the technology currently, to be able to do that at that granular of level. And then also, once a circuit is off and there's no longer power to that meter, then you no longer have that remote operating capability.
Thank you.
Okay,
I've
got
got
it.
real quick. I think we have time for one more question for Austin Energy before Jackie has to jump off.
Okay, this is from KView. It's a similar question about other Texas cities that have been able to successfully conduct rolling blackouts. And if you could just kind of explain again why Austin hasn't been able to do that. In theory, wouldn't other cities have similar concerns about circuits with critical infrastructure?
I'm sure that they do have critical infrastructure. They just may not proportionately to the size of our system have that. And so a greater portion of our system are on critical circuits and are designated as critical loads. And because of the requirements that ERCOT or the directives that we received to shed load, we got to that max capability very quickly. And when we identify that, we actually had planned for additional headroom. It's just that this circumstance is so significant and has lasted for an extended period of time, creating such pressures on the system. But we're working to get there.
Thank you very much, Jackie. If you need to jump off to other calls, we really appreciate your time and being able to talk to us.
Thank you.
Okay, back to the top with non-energy related questions. The Statesman asks, how many burst pipes or water main breaks have been identified citywide? How long does it take to repair them?
Well, on private plumbing burst pipes, these would be on the public or on the private side, inside a house, apartment complex. There's been many thousands. You may have read the Austin Fire response to 9/11 calls of flooding, and they've responded to thousands. It's just it's a number we don't know exactly, but it's in the thousands. On the public side, we've experienced many dozens of water main breaks, and we've repaired many of those and are repairing them actively 24/7. And more are occurring as the ground freezes, as ground shifts. It creates more water main breaks. We believe we had a large water main break in Circle C yesterday, which contributed to our problem southwest that we're working to better identify and repair. It's really difficult now for us to even see the breaks with all the snow on the ground and the running water. Our crews are hampered by icing on the road. We don't get around the way we normally do. Also, our instrumentation, a lot of the data that we normally get has iced over, and the instrumentation is not working properly. So we're really struggling with kind of knowledge of the system where some of these breaks are occurring. But anytime the weather gets significantly cold and stays cold, we get a lot of both public and private breaks. I think this is more than we would have ever experienced at any time in Austin Water's 100-year history.
Okay, thank you. And this is a question from us at the Chronicle. Do we anticipate the death toll from cold-related causes to rise going forward? What more can the city and county do to help those most at risk?
I'll start out, and certainly we do not want anyone to perish during this event. With any large-scale weather emergency, we need to make sure that we are protecting our most vulnerable, and so we are paying close attention if there are those cases. But we are doing everything we can to provide the warming shelters, to provide opportunities for people to get to them so they have a safe place to be. And we will continue to reach out to our support networks and everyone in our community looking after each other so we can keep each other safe.
And yeah, I think another thing to look at is over coming days, obviously there have been long lines at HEBs around the city and the county, and I'm starting to work with the Central Texas Food Bank and others to make sure that we're doing everything we can as a community to meet any food insecurity needs that are coming up as this. And so I would put the call out, if you're able to volunteer over the next coming days and weeks with the Central Texas Food Bank or other people who help provide food to people who need it, I would ask that you consider doing so.
Okay, thanks. Community Impact asks, with the boil water notice issued for parts of the city and reports of low or no water flow by residents in the Southwest Austin and Lost Creek area, why are those areas being impacted differently than others across the city? And is there an estimate of when water pressure may return?
Well, in part, the Southwest system was more severely affected by what we believe was a large main break somewhere in that area, maybe multiple ones, and that we're still searching for isolating and finding those. Part of it is the way our system is configured. As you go into the Southwest, elevations change, and higher elevations, more reservoirs, and the first areas that would drain down under kind of demand exceeding production, and so that's what we saw in that area. Although, to be clear, our entire system is affected. This is not just a Southwest system issue, and other customers don't have to worry about this. We need to manage this so this doesn't propagate and affect more and more parts of our system, and that's why we need everyone working on this, because this is being impacted everywhere. We're seeing main breaks and pipe bursting and dripping faucets by the tens of thousands all across our system. And so our entire system is under stress.
As it is in other cities as well. Waco, Fort Worth, Dallas, Houston. This is a symptom of the larger challenge we're all dealing with, and it's happening across the state.
Yes, the mayor makes a great point. This is not just unique to Austin. This is happening with all of our water colleagues. And matter of fact, Houston, the entire city issued a citywide boil water notice this morning because of the very same issues: extremely low water pressure, leaks, and the need to protect the public.
Okay, thanks. CBS Austin asks, Austin Water is now requiring mandatory conservation to avoid a city-wide boil water notice. Some areas are already under a boil water notice. How do you expect people to boil water without electricity?
Well, if you have gas, that's an option, but we understand that a lot of people won't, and they won't be able to boil water. They're going to have to work to try to get potable water through other means, primarily bottled water or using other liquids in the house, maybe calling on neighbors. We know bottled water is a commodity that's very precious now and difficult to get. We have a little bit of bottled water that we're going to try to deliver to some areas, but we don't have very much. And we know the hardship that it's putting on people, but that's really kind of where we are now.
And I'll just say we continue to work on providing additional resources for those areas that are most impacted and for those most vulnerable. But we are asking our community to really make sure that they only take what they need. This is a crisis for our entire state, and we need to take our own self-assessment of what is it that I actually need to be able to make sure that I'm safe. And then if I'm not able to do that, how can I help my neighbor in getting what they need to stay safe? So we really want to make sure that that conservation is there.
Gotcha. And KXAN asks, do you see a situation where there would have to be a citywide boil water advisory? What did Austin learn from the October 2018 citywide boil water advisory? Is there anything that can apply to this situation?
Well, we're working to avoid a citywide boil water notice, but we can't take it off the table if we can't ultimately bring demand down and better match up with production. Because as I mentioned, this is affecting our entire system, and leaks and breaks and water use is everywhere. In terms of the 2018 boil water notice, I think it's important to note similarities, but also differences. First, 2018 was really a water quality boil water notice. It wasn't a quantity as much in the sense of the river had a lot of silt in it. What we did learn there, though, was that it's very important to conserve. As we had to slow our treatment plants down during that event, ultimately when we had customers conserve and could refill our reservoirs, that was the key for us pulling out of that. And that's the same circumstance we have now. Our reservoirs, our elevated tanks, our reservoirs, the areas where we store water and keep pressure up, those are drained down. And if we can start to recover those, pressures will stabilize and the system will stabilize. And that's the trick. And right now, we're not able to stabilize because demand is exceeding production.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I believe that was our last question that was posted. Thank you again to Austin Sanders from the Austin Chronicle for being our reporter today. This does conclude the press conference.
Matt,
oh, sorry.
Matt, could we just, as long as we're here, could we get a little description maybe from Austin Water about where the boiled water notice is and what that means? Because I haven't heard that talked about here. I know that I think Pflugerville, Bastrop have boil water notices. Just could you help delineate where within Austin those are right now? I think is it Lost Creek and generally Southwest Austin, and then what are we asking people to do? Is it boil it for 10 minutes? Is that the advice? If you could just maybe throw that out there.
Yes. So the areas right now that are under boil water notice, it's the Southwest system. We have maps on our web page. It's a fairly broad area of Southwest. I can't really kind of narrate it over the phone, but it would be like Circle C area, the Y, kind of that part of our system, and then a little tiny bit of Lost Creek subdivision. There's roughly about 400 customers there that experienced the tank that froze and they got low water pressure. That's currently the areas that we have under the boil water notice. When we say boil water, it just means you can use the water, for flushing and all of those kind of things. But if you're going to consume the water, if you're going to drink it or cook with it, it's a recommendation that you boil that kills any risk of bacteriological contaminants. That's the concern, is that when the pressures go down very low or zero, that water cross-contamination, groundwater or other sources potentially could get into the drinking water system. And so if you just boil it, very quickly, and again, we have instructions on websites and media postings and others, just for a couple of 3 minutes, and you're good. That kills anything in the water that you would drink or cook with.
Thanks. So just for Univision, let me just say, si vive en Lost Creek or un área en el sur oeste de la ciudad de Austin, hay que hervir el agua antes de tomarlo y hervirlo por como 3 minutos antes de tomarlo o cocinar con el agua. Y también si vive en Pflugerville, Bastrop, también hay que hervir el agua antes de tomarlo. Puede utilizar agua para el baño y otras cosas sin hervir, pero si lo tomas, por favor, hírvelo. Gracias. Thank you so much for adding that clarity.
Thank you very much, Judge. That's definitely very important information for everyone to have. And if anyone else has any questions about it, they can certainly call 311 or look at our the county and city social media channels. I believe they also have the information posted there. This does conclude our press conference. As a reminder to everyone, please stay weather aware and emergency prepared as this storm does continue. And again, for any more information, please continue to follow the city and county for updates on our social media channels. Thank you again, everyone.
Stay safe, everyone.